Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something that's probably happening right under your nose. We are uncovering the hidden and sometimes entirely invisible architecture of manipulation and dark psychology that might be quietly affecting your everyday life. We're going to look really closely at the invisible strings some people use to control those around them, and more importantly, how you can learn to spot those strings before they tangle you up. So, think about the people you interact with daily. Have you ever walked away from a conversation just totally questioning your own sanity? Yeah, we've all been there. We've all dealt with difficult, bossy, or emotionally volatile people. But today, we need to make a really crucial distinction. Are you simply dealing with a tough personality that just needs some careful managing? Or are you actually the victim of a calculated manipulator? All right, let's get into it. The fundamental difference between healthy influence and toxic control literally all boils down to one single word: intent. Humans are naturally always trying to influence each other, right? That's just how society works. But persuasion has your best interest at heart. It's honest from the get-go and genuinely aims to create a win-win situation. Manipulation, on the flip side, actively harms you for someone else's gain. A manipulator's intent is to confuse you, instill guilt, ridicule you, and basically just use you to serve their own agenda, completely regardless of what it does to your well-being.
Moving into Section 1, meet the Dark Triad, the 3 pillars of dark psychology.
So when we look at the absolute extreme end of this behavior, criminologists and psychologists talk about a deeply sinister framework known as the Dark Triad. It's used to predict highly exploitative behavior. Let's start with the first pillar, narcissism. This is actually named after Narcissus from Greek mythology, the hunter who is so utterly obsessed with his own reflection in a pool of water that he couldn't care about anyone else and eventually drowned. In psychology, folks with this trait have a massively inflated sense of self-worth. They're boastful, selfish, and, here's the kicker, they are hypersensitive to any criticism because they absolutely cannot bear the thought of being flawed.
Next up is Machiavellianism. This stems from the 16th century Italian diplomat Niccolò Machiavelli, whose notorious book, The Prince, basically endorsed cunning and deceit in politics. People with this trait, they operate purely on duplicity to get what they want. They calculate every single move with zero moral restraint and practically zero emotion. To them, life is just a giant chess game, and unfortunately, everyone else is just a pawn.
And finally, the third pillar, psychopathy. This one is marked by severe hostility, antisocial behavior, and a seriously chilling lack of empathy or remorse. Now, a key takeaway from the research here is that having psychopathic traits doesn't automatically mean someone is a violent criminal, but it does mean they have absolutely no problem manipulating and stepping all over you if it serves their specific purpose.
Now, what's fascinating is that this isn't just some abstract theory, it's highly measurable. Back in 2010, researchers Dr. Peter Jonassen and Dr. Gregory Webster created something called the Dirty Dozen Scale. They'd have participants rate themselves on statements like, "I have a tendency to rely on deceit to get my way." Individuals were scored anywhere from a 12 to an 84 to accurately measure these dark triad traits right in a laboratory setting. The higher the score, the higher the presence of those dark traits. Simple as that.
Which brings us to Section 2, the everyday sadist. And they are way closer than you think.
Here's where things get kind of terrifying. Research shows these traits share a dark core that frequently overlaps into everyday sadistic behavior. We're not talking about movie villains lurking in the shadows here. We're talking about ordinary people in everyday professions. The research points out that you'll see these tactics used by politicians chasing votes, lawyers trying to win at all costs, or salespeople pressuring a buyer. Even public speakers and community leaders might resort to dark psychology to ensure compliance. They will use whatever dark tactics serve their ends.
Let's look at an everyday example straight from the source material. Imagine a guy loses his job, right? He confides only in his brother, begging him to keep it totally private. But soon after, at a family gathering, everyone is suddenly offering him their sympathies. Obviously, the brother leaked the secret. But when confronted, a skillful everyday sadist won't apologize. No way. Instead, he'll adamantly deny it, twisting reality so masterfully that the victim actually walks away feeling guilty for even suspecting him. It's wild.
Okay, Section 3, signs you are being manipulated. Recognizing the invisible threats in your daily life.
So how do we actually spot these covert psychological bullies before they drain our energy and warp our reality? Well, there are some very specific telltale signs. First up, watch how they handle favors. With a manipulator, nothing is ever truly free. If a favor always comes with strings attached, or if they suddenly act like your absolute best friend right when they need something from you, yeah, you're dealing with a manipulator. You're always going to be left feeling this heavy, uncomfortable obligation to repay them.
Another huge red flag to watch out for is blame shifting. Even when they make a colossal mistake, somehow you become the scapegoat. They'll twist the conversation around and around until you are literally questioning your own memory and judgment. They make you feel unworthy, which basically forces you to just cave to their demands because you feel like you're constantly in the wrong.
Moving into Section 4, Red Flags in Relationships. This is when the threat is the person you love.
This brings us to honestly the most emotionally devastating scenario, when the manipulator is your romantic partner. And we have a massive societal blind spot here. Pop culture and movies, think Twilight, have dangerously romanticized jealousy and obsession as this passionate, all-consuming true love. We're taught that having zero boundaries is romantic, but ignoring reality is dangerous. In the real world, obsessive behavior and controlling tendencies are not love. They are incredibly toxic indicators of deep manipulation.
So what does this actually look like? Well, a manipulative partner will relentlessly critique every aspect of your life, how you dress, how you speak, how you spend your money. And the truly insidious part, they wrap it all up in a bow and call it love. They'll claim it's for your own good, when in reality they're actively trying to destroy your self-esteem so you feel like you could never do better, making you completely dependent on that.
Another massive red flag is the creation of mistrust. Look, a healthy relationship respects boundaries, but a manipulator, they completely disregard your fundamental right to privacy. They'll demand access to your passwords, your social media, your private texts, the whole shebang. And to get it, they'll often leverage some fake sob story about being cheated on in the past, just to guilt trip you into handing over your digital life.
Oh, and they love to play the protector, when they slowly and methodically start isolating you from your friends, your family, and your support systems. They're not going to admit they want to control you. They'll mask that immense thirst for control behind the lie that they're merely trying to protect you from the bad influences out there in the world.
And if you ever try to pull away, brace yourself for emotional blackmail. Telling you that they simply cannot live without you, or threatening self-harm if you leave, is quite literally one of the most selfish things a person can do. It's an entirely empty threat, designed 100% to terrify you, play on your empathy, and permanently trap you in the relationship. To maintain all this control, they build an alternate reality. They'll provoke you on purpose just to get a reaction, exaggerate wildly, and spin an intricate, tangled web of distorted facts and lies. I mean, this is gaslighting 101. They do this just to make you question your own sanity and eventually believe that you, not them, are the root of all the problems.
Which leaves us with this final, absolutely vital question. The research makes one thing abundantly clear. You had great judgment before you met them. You knew how to read people. So if something feels deeply wrong in your relationships, will you trust your gut again? Take a look around you today. Who is holding the invisible strings in your life right now, and what's going to happen when you finally decide to cut them?